Hey, what's up YouTube? In this video, we are going to be trying something fun. I got a comment the other day. Maybe it wasn't the other day, but still. I got a comment a while back asking to build the Lego Corner Cafe modular building in Minecraft, which is a set of words that I didn't even understand until I googled them and found this. This is very cool, and I would like it in my city. So for the first time ever, we are going to make a Lego set in Minecraft for all of your city building needs. Let's get started. Honestly guys, I was a little bit intimidated by this one. I wasn't really sure where I should begin. I've never made a building that is this shape before, and I've never tried to copy a Lego set before, so we had a couple of firsts. However, I did finally settle with attempting to make the left side of the modular building, starting with the bottom, working my way up to the top. I figured that if I made the general shape of the build, then we could add the finer details later. I also decided pretty early on that I'm not looking to make a one-for-one copy of this building. I wanted to make it at the correct scale for my city. I don't really want this build to stand out and look weird on a street corner. It's not too far off of the original, however, if I was trying to copy the Lego set one-for-one, this would be slightly bigger. But this is perfect for me. This build is really interesting. It uses such a diverse array of materials that you wouldn't think would go together on paper, but when you actually build this, it all oddly gels together really nicely. So for the base, we have a mixture of stone, andesite, stone brick, and underneath the windows we have some blue concrete and black stained glass pane for the actual windows themselves, some white and yellow wool for the canopies, and it just looks really good. All of those blocks seem rather standard by themselves, but as we move up to the middle section of the building, we have mud, sand, and red terracotta with a little bit of quartz and some more black stained glass mixed in there. Even a little bit of black concrete as well towards the top. Which when you just say all of those out loud or write them down, it's like, those do not go together at all, especially in conjunction with the previous stone blocks. And yet, for the top section, we have a really vibrant red roof with these two large windows. These were really difficult to make for me. They clearly have a cross shape in the middle of the windows with 4 single panes in each corner, but I just couldn't find a way to replicate this that didn't look bad. I also had to change the shape of these quite a bit and the positionings to get them right. And I could never really figure out what was in the top of the windows because we have the square bit at the base and kind of a semicircle above them. But there seems to be some sort of like little statue in there, which is just strange. I mean, I don't know what that is. So I opted to just turn the statue into a smaller window. These windows turned out to be really complicated though. We have stone slab sills in front of the actual smooth quartz frame. We have the window panes themselves, which I failed to recreate correctly. The semicircle above with the weird stone protrusion, I'm not even sure what that is. And then there's some really interesting modeling around the top of them as well. I kind of just left them like this until I could get my head around it. I also decided that the middle section of the building was a little too small, so I raised it up just one more row. I was very tempted to do this with the base of the building as well, however I left it as it was. There's an interesting stone wall, I'll call it, around the top of the roof. So just using a mixture of stone slabs, stone brick wall, some iron bars, and I also went with heavy cores as well to kind of further decorate the walls. we're just going to leave it at that for now. At this point, I'm pretty happy with the general structure of the wall. There are a couple of things that I am going to have to change later, but for now, I think that the size and shape of this is pretty good. Next, we have to turn our attention to the central part of our building. By far, the hardest part for me to make, as this is going to be, oddly enough, the very first diagonal building that I have ever made. There's no real way around it. This is where two city streets will converge and join together in the middle, and if I want this to look anything like the Lego model, we have to build it diagonally. So just as with the left side of the module, I decided to start with the bottom, work my way up to the top, and more so than ever, just work out the scale and shape of the center part of the building before I started adding any detail, because otherwise this could go really messy really quickly, and that's exactly what I did. I even had a huge amount of trouble just kind of figuring out the general shape. This was really weird for me. The only part that did come easy is the general sort of colour scheme. Because we nailed that with the previous part of the building, I felt very confident in my choices here. What does help as well, because each part of the building is kind of colour coded with its own materials, that does make it very easy to track what part of the building you are working on and what confines of space you are working with. With the general shape complete, we had to add in details. So the ground level was easy, it's just a huge doorway, which we're just using glass for. There's no diagonal door in Minecraft, so we're kind of just stuck with this. The part above though is really difficult. We had to carve out a window design that incorporated the red terracotta, the smooth quartz, that didn't look like a big cube. It's really hard. I just found myself shaving more and more parts off of the window frame that I made until eventually I was kinda happy with it. There was also this weird indentation above the window that I wasn't sure how to build, so I just exchanged them for mud wall, and honestly it ended up looking quite good. I had a similar level of frustration with the larger window above as well. It was so hard just to make a window that looked perfect. Which is when I decided that it didn't really have to look perfect, as we couldn't build this in the same orientation as the actual Lego set. We had to compromise, otherwise I don't think that it'd even be possible to make this. I definitely consider this large window in line with the red roof to be a huge problem area, because once again, the weird stone statuette slash strange protrusion above the window I just didn't get. I even considered that they could be like pigeons as well, which is kind of fun. There's also some interesting brickwork above the window as well, which we are using sandstone wall for. Luckily, once I had sorted out that middle window section, everything else kind of fell into place a little bit easier. Above this is kind of like a clock tower, but without the clock. It's kind of a fun part of the build. It's like a sandstone spire with, once again, some sort of stone statuette in the middle. For the statuette, I'm using an armor stand, and I'll outfit it with some armor. We have to get the scale of this right as well, otherwise it's gonna look really weird just shoved on top of our building. The roof shape was really interesting as well. We have kind of a circular design that kind of peaks up into a triangular shape, which sounds really weird, but I don't know how else to describe it. I'm very happy with the general shape and design of the central part of our building. But before we can progress, I think that we should make the right side of our cafe. Honestly, this is really easy, as the right side of this building is almost identical to the left side, barring a couple of details. So we will copy and paste our previous work all the way over here, which leaves us with this. Now that we have pretty much the entire structure of the building complete, it's now time for us to work on some further details, starting with the streets, which means first of all we have to make a pavement. I'm just using smooth stone for this. On the left side of the building we have two sets of tables with a chair and parasol on the tables. I'm using polished black stone wall for the table leg itself and a yellow carpet for the actual flat part of the table. For the parasol, an end rod with some pale oak slabs, and for the chair I'm using a bamboo slab. I would have preferred to use a block that I could have placed something on top of for the table, but nothing really struck a chord, so carpet it is. Moving over to the right side of the cafe, we have a bench, a lamppost, and a bicycle. The bench, I'm of course using spruce stairs and spruce trapdoors. For the lamppost, diorite wall with a beacon and diorite slab. And for the bicycle, I'm using mangrove because the bicycle is red. I actually have a tutorial on how to make that bicycle on the channel. It's one of my favourites and one of my least popular videos. Now it's time that we made some alterations to the right side of the building. Earlier I said that the right side is almost identical to the left. Almost. Over here on the right, we don't have quite as much canopy, so we remove it and we make way for a doorway. I'm assuming that this doorway either leads into the hotel that is apparently either here or next to this building. I'm actually quite unsure, but all I know is that there is a doorway here, so we're making that using blue concrete and just a mixture of smooth stone slabs and glass and stone slabs just to make an archway around the top of the door. There's actually quite a lot of depth with this doorway, so it's kind of interesting actually. Now above this door is the aforementioned hotel sign. This is just a large vertical sign hanging directly off of the side of the building. The sign itself is white, so I'm using some smooth quartz for this, and the top is rounded, but the lettering is red. So I'm just going to place the banners just so that we can get the scale for this sign correct, but we will actually make the banners themselves later. In my usual ADD style of building, we have now bounced back to the entrance, where I kind of realised the middle of this entire building just isn't quite right, so I spent a bit of time refining it. I tightened up the doorway so that it was actually even and level with the above part of the building. I of course shaved off the overhang and turned that into a diagonal shape, once again in line with the rest of the middle of the building. And I just spent a lot of time just trying to refine the entrance, as it's actually very difficult to get a grasp on what's even going on here. There's a lot of depth and a lot of weird shapes, especially around the top of the doorway, which was honestly rather difficult to replicate. I did reach a point in which I was happy, but honestly I might come back and try and refine it even further later. I came to the consensus that the entire middle part of this build was still a bit too blocky. I kind of thought that it needed smoothing out and making a little bit more diagonal, so I did just that. I moved my way up the entire middle section and removed pretty much an entire layer of blocks moving all the way up. Most of the work went into the large window up towards the top of the build. I restructured the window frame around the base and definitely at the top. I actually think I did a really good job restructuring the top of the frame. I like this so much better than what we had previously. I also forgot to hang the lanterns at both of the entrances earlier, so I just decided to do that before I forgot. We also had to add some extra mangrove slabs across the top of our upper windows just to improve the shape a little bit. And since I was up here, I decided to also add some iron armor to our armor stand statuette, and also to tunnel through to the opposite side of the tower, as you can clearly see through the tower in the reference image. I also decided to sort out the roof section once and for all because it shouldn't be too tricky. I squared off the roof using just good old regular stone and filled the middle of it in using stone bricks. I also extended the stone wall / railing section from the center of the building all the way to the edge. And lastly, I added 2 chimneys to the building as well. The chimneys are made using a mixture of andesite, stone, and stone brick. I also decided to make some changes with the upper windows. I think that this shape fits the build a little bit better. I altered the, I don't even know what to call it above the door, and I added the lettering to the sign. You know, it's kind of funny, I've been focusing on the front of the build so much that I actually completely forgot that there is an entire back of the build. I think that the best thing to do is simply just seal up the back of the build with a right angle, matching the materials that we have on the sides of the build, and adding in some simple floors and walls. I figured that there are 3 floors in total, and we need a separating wall for the doorway that we have on the right side of the build that I'm still not sure about. We're going to talk about that later though. We've done a lot, ladies and gentlemen, but this build would not feel complete without at least a little bit of an interior. 20 minutes later. So, as this is called the Cafe Corner Modular Building, I have at the very least made a cafe on the ground floor. It's a pretty simple cafe, but I quite like it. And that is the entire build, 100% fully completed, ladies and gentlemen. Kind of. I would love it if you've made it this far into the video. Leave a comment and let me know what I should do with the other floors of this building. Do I turn the back part of this build and the second and third floors into a hotel? Or is this entire building meant to be like apartments or just storage space for the cafe? That doesn't seem right. Surely we don't have a 3-floored cafe. That seems insane. And we have the hotel sign included here. If you have any ideas down below, please do let me know, and I will make a small update and I'll show you what I decide to do with your help. For the moment, this build is going to go into storage, only because we will soon be revamping the part of the city that this build is going to go in. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.